Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Today I've got a double action replay for you. It's from the perspective of two of the players in today's battle. And this is one of the, well in fact no, I'm going to call it here. This is the most remarkable example of completely random teamwork I have ever seen in any game, let alone World of Warships. And it's really inconsiderate, because I literally just put a World of Warships video up this very week with the title, Teamwork. And so I had to sit and brainstorm for like half an hour to come up with a decent title for this one. I don't know, some people. Also, I don't know exactly who's who in this. Well, I mean, I do. This is Hako Zepeka in the Tier 10 Australian destroyer, HMAS Vampire 2. And this is Slack, which is short for his full name, which is mostly unpronounceable, in the Tier 10 European, although it's actually Swedish, light cruiser, the Svea. But I don't know which of them is the one that actually sent the replays in, if you know what I mean. Not that it matters, because they both deserve equal credit. And you could tell right from the start, purely from the chat, that this was going to be good. Hako starts things off by asking the Svea if he's going to go close to the central cap at Bravo, because he wants to ambush from there. And Slack and the Svea, which, by the way, in case you're unfamiliar with the characteristics of the ship, is a Tier 10 light cruiser that gets a smoke screen and radar. Slack instantly responds with, yeah, sure, why not? I'll back you up. So straight away, we've got a match made in heaven here. You've got Hako here in the... I keep wanting to call it a daring, and that's not wrong, because it kind of is. It's an Australian version of HMS Daring, but it's not the Daring, it's HMAS Vampire. It's Australian Navy, not Royal Navy, which is an excellent destroyer. I mean, I'm sure you all know how good the Daring is, and HMAS Vampire is just as good, if not better. And then, of course, you've got Slack here in the Svea, which is an extremely versatile European light cruiser with all of the best consumables and some pretty decent firepower for a light cruiser. I mean, we're not talking HMS Minotaur standards here, and while it is only equipped with 7 5-inch guns, pretty decent rate of fire. But this one's all about the consumables. Well, they're approaching that central cap, and already the enemy Shimakaze got himself spotted. So, things are not going to go well for him. Remember, the Svea has radar. Hako's even there in chat. Yep, Shimakaze, dead already. And he just doesn't know it yet. There goes the engine boost. Because, I mean, the Vampire's very good at a lot of things, but its mobility isn't amazing. He's going to come around that corner, spot that Shimakaze, and then the two of them. There goes his defensive hydro, just in case. I mean, there's the smoke screen, so it's fairly obvious that the Shimakaze is still here. Plus, I mean, you know, somebody's flipping that central cap, so we know exactly where he is. Slack paying attention to when Hako has line of fire before he triggers the radar and scares the bejesus out of that Shimakaze, and they both start unloading on him. Oh dear. And there's first blood for Hako in the Vampire 2. And of course, because obvious torpedoes are extremely obvious, but it doesn't hurt to have the defensive hydro up anyway. Those are extremely easy to dodge. And now, they're taking this central cap completely uncontested, and the enemy team are down one Tier 10 destroyer. Now, the enemy team are flipping the capture circle at Alpha, or at least heavily contesting it, but that early kill, combined with Hako's team flipping the cap circle at Charlie, does mean that they've managed to sneak an early lead. The scores are bugged, of course. Of course they are, it's a World of Warships replay. And he's got shots at the enemy carrier, which is always fun. In fact, he actually manages to set him on fire before its automatic damage control cuts in, and he's now basically immune to any kind of fire for the next minute or so. There'll be a small 20-second window when he's vulnerable to fire again before the automatic damage control kicks in, because, you know, that's fair, isn't it? Anyway, cap flipped. Meanwhile, it looks like somebody's indulging in a little bit of hot, sweaty submarine-on-submarine action as the enemy SEAL rams and sinks the friendly Gato except without dying himself in the process. Looks like somebody's abusing the shit out of the Hotel Yankee flag. Meanwhile, that's a very, very suspicious move there from the enemy Zhao. Nosing his ass out like that. Gee, I wonder if he's launched torpedoes. He's within 10 kilometres. I think there may be torpedoes coming. The cap circle at Charlie, behind them, is heavily contested now by an enemy Halland and the Napoli. The friendly Shimakaze doing his, I have to say, suicidal best to try to prevent those two from flipping that cap circle. He got perilously close to the Napoli, but survived. Or possibly, maybe it's the Napoli who was lucky to get that close to a Shimakaze and survive. Either way, the enemy team are in the process of flipping the cap at Charlie. The Napoli has forced the Shimakaze far enough away that the Halland's been able to go undetected, and he's basically the one who's flipping that cap. Roger. Meanwhile, Hako and Slack abusing the communication consumable to figure out what between the two of them they're going to do next, and the immediate plan is to go and deal with that Halland, help the Shimakaze out, and then head for the enemy-held cap circle at Alpha. I'm sure the friendly Shimakaze would appreciate the assist, although I'm not certain that plan's going to survive contact with the enemy. I mean, sure, go back and help defend the cap at Charlie, but I think by the time that's happened, they're not going to be in any position to take the cap at Alpha. They're going to be in a fight to defend the cap they've just taken here at Bravo, but we'll see what happens. Either way, I'm sure that friendly Shimakaze, who's been doing a great job at Charlie, is going to appreciate the assist. Speaking of which, there it is. Slack just popped his radar, and there's the Halland, who has very wisely decided that it's time to get the hell out of Dodge. Although not before managing to torpedo and sink the friendly Slava, which is a bit of a bummer. At more or less the same time as the Seal that survived the ram with the friendly Gato earlier, just manages to get himself another kill by torpedoing and sinking the Mecklenburg. And the Halland, clearly capable of thinking and breathing at the same time, because rather than trying to return fire, he did the smart thing and just motored the hell on out of there, went undetected, and is therefore still lurking somewhere to the north of and threatening Cap Circle Charlie. So he's going to have to be dealt with. And I think that's looking like a job for Hako here. First though, somebody's going to have to deal with that Schlieffen. I mean, Hako can do that, but it's an extremely brave destroyer that willingly gets itself shot at by a Schlieffen's secondaries. Meanwhile, over at Cap Circle Alpha, right at the far west end of the map, because believe it or not, some of the team are, or rather were, still fighting over there, the friendly Druid just took out the enemy Daring, and then, unfortunately, immediately got nuked by the enemy Minotaur, which means Alpha is completely lost. I mean, honestly, it has been for a good couple of minutes now. I'm amazed there's anybody still fighting over it. Speaking of which, if I can just draw your attention to the minimap, over there to the south of Alpha, the friendly Gross occur first. Last friendly ship alive on the western flank has an island right next to him that he could divert around to the south in order to not allow the entire enemy team to shoot at him while he relocates back over here with the rest of the team. So naturally, he chooses to go around to the north. He's probably not going to survive that decision. Speaking of decisions, enemy Halland's gotten re-spotted. There are some shots coming in there from Slack in the Svea, but the Halland's actually in a decent spot. And again, he's not returning fire. He's managed to get an island between himself and Slack, so he only really has to worry about... There it is. Yeah, once again, just had to weather the fire from Hako's Vampire for a couple of seconds. And he was probably hoping that the secondaries from the Schlieffen there would make his life a bit easier. And they did a bit of damage, but the Schlieffen was under such heavy fire from, well, a whole bunch of ships, but it was the friendly Jinan who took him out. And again, that Halland managed to slip away and still represents a serious threat to the safety of the Cap Circle here at Charlie. Hako making a sharp turn to port there, and just in time, because obvious Halland torpedoes are kind of obvious, and well, now he doesn't have to worry about it because he's got an island between himself and any further torpedo salvos, at least for the next minute or so. But now they've got to make a decision. Are they going to finish what they started and chase down the Halland, or are they going to join the rest of the team in defending the Cap Circle at Bravo, which is starting to come under pressure from the enemy team? Well, while they stop and think about it, the immediate plan is to finish off that Montana. Hako was coming over here to offer a smokescreen to Slack as his own smoke expired, but Slack's telling him, no, it's okay, I'm fine, I don't need it. The two of them once again abusing the shit out of that very expensive premium communications consumable. And there goes the Montana. That Zau's still going to be a problem, of course. But not as much of a problem as the Halland. So, decision time. I mean, it would make sense for Slack in the Surveyor to go after the Halland. Oh, and he's got him. He's been detected. He is, after all, the light cruiser. He's the destroyer killer, and he's got the radar and the smoke. But he has a couple of problems. One, of course, being the Zau up to the north, who can do some serious damage to a light cruiser with its 8-inch high explosive shells. And the other problem being that Halland is not dumb enough to stay within radar range for longer than a couple of seconds at best. You can see there in chat that Hako has come to the conclusion, and honestly I think he's right, that the continued harassment of the Halland, mostly by Slack in the Surveyor, has chased him away so far to the north that he's basically irrelevant for at least the next couple of minutes. So, bearing that in mind, Hako's off to farm some damage and defend the central cap here at Bravo, and Slack in the Surveyor is going to continue lurking around just to the north of the cap circle at Charlie, defending that and ensuring that the Halland, at best, gets killed, or at worst, continues to remain irrelevant. He's also in a very good position to provide radar support to the central cap at Bravo, should anybody need it. Friendly Grosser Kurfürst just got sunk. Honestly, I'm surprised it took this long. It looks like you managed to get all the way around the wrong side of that island before the enemy Minotaur finally finished him off. Looking at Slack's position, tucked in around the side of that island there, that Yamato right now is the single biggest threat to his safety. So that is the target that Hako is going for. He can shelter from the Yamato or the Zau. He cannot shelter from them both. And the Yamato is the bigger threat to a light cruiser. So the Yamato is the target that Hako is going for. In fact, we can switch to Slack's perspective at the exact moment where he catches sight of the Zau and the Zau catches sight of him. Of course, he's not going to just sit there and get shot at by the Zau. He does have a smoke generator after all, so why not use it? He's perfectly safe from the Yamato on this side of the island. The only things he really needs to worry about are torpedoes, either from the Zau or the Halland, who's just been respotted. Friendly carrier just got sunk, by the way. Because Slack's in a light cruiser, however, he can do things here that the Zau would not be able to do under the similar circumstances. If you actually look, there's a new addition to the minimap, you can see his range circle expanding and contracting as he fires the guns within the smoke. This is the smoke firing penalty that I'm always talking about. You may want to rewind the video a couple of seconds so you can actually see it happening. And yes, he is of course leaving the smoke screen. Of course he was. So there's 2 torpedo-armed ships within 10 kilometers of that smoke screen. He's not lurking around inside it. But out here in open water, his surface detection range is 9.3 kilometers. When he was inside the smoke screen, it was 2 kilometers when he wasn't shooting, which is the minimum assured detection range. And yes, obviously there are the Halland torpedoes, because of course they are. But you could see what his actual detection range was while he was shooting in the smoke, because it only blossomed up to 5.6 kilometers. And of course the Zau was further away than that, so the Zau couldn't see who was shooting at him. So that's the smoke firing penalty that I'm always talking about, and that's how you can tell how far your smoke firing penalty is if you can't remember it in the heat of battle. Now, while all of that was going on, I mean, the Vampire 2 can do significant amounts of damage to anything, but when something's got as many hit points as the Yamato, unless you're slamming torpedoes into it, it takes a while for the damage output of a single Daring, because he is the only one shooting at the Yamato. It takes a while for that damage output to mount up to significant levels. And while he was doing that, the Yamato managed to follow up its kill on the friendly carrier, the Richthofen, with another kill on the friendly Jinan, knocking the team down to 4 surviving ships. And while the friendly Shimakaze did manage to sink something, the Yamato then gets another kill on the friendly Libertad. And while I have no doubts that eventually, keyword being eventually, that Yamato is going to succumb to the weight of fire that Hako is putting out here, it's a question of how many friendly ships are going to die before, and I had to go and open my big mouth, didn't I? The enemy submarine, the Seal, just torpedoed and sank the Shimakaze. So now Hako and Slack are the only 2 left alive against 5 enemies. And that Yamato is proving to be remarkably stubborn. If he's switching to high explosive, 18.1-inch high explosive will ruin a daring... No, it's armor piercing. Oh, that's not good, but it could be worse. The armor piercing is just going to over-penetrate. Alright, Hako's managed to get another fire. The damage control on the Yamato is obviously on cooldown, so hopefully this is going to be enough to sink him. And they do need to sink that Yamato before the rest of the enemy team catch up. Now, hold on to that thought as we go back to Slack, who is obviously not keen to be getting shot at by a Yamato, and does actually have other problems of his own. Just like he said, he's still here defending Charlie. Notice his radio position finder pointing to the other side of the island. That's the Halland, which is why you can see the torpedoes that he launched around the right side of the island, because you never know, you might get lucky, while he moved to intercept around the left side of the island. So the torpedoes didn't hit anything, but he knows, well, he doesn't know exactly where the Halland is, but he's got a pretty good idea that he's close enough, judging by the speed at which that radio location indicator is changing direction, which must mean he's pretty close. The guns are loaded with high explosive. He does only have 7, but a 4.5 second reload, there he is. He knew exactly where he was going to be. And that Halland is toast. He might still get torpedoes away. Actually, no. If he managed to get torpedoes away, we would have seen him by now. And that has not only secured the cap at Charlie and killed the Halland, but he's also got himself once again in a position where he's 100% safe from those 18.1-inch armor-piercing shells on the Yamato that Hako just sank. So, once again, it's decision time. They are doing pretty well. I mean, thanks to retaining those 2 cap circles at Bravo and Charlie, they're still 200 points ahead. But they are outnumbered by 1, which isn't a lot, but it's what they're outnumbered by that's the problem. The submarine outspots the Vampire. The enemy team have a Minotaur, which outshoots the Vampire and the Surveyor, and of course they have an aircraft carrier, which outspots everything. So, they're doing 2 things here. They're joining up, because I've lost track of the number of times where a team could have won if they just stayed together and taken down the remaining enemy ships one at a time, rather than going their own ways and being taken apart piece by piece individually. So first, they're joining up. But the other thing they're doing is they're sharing their consumable status, so they both know exactly what each other's capabilities are. Hako was letting Slack know that his hydro was ready, his smoke was about to become available. Slack was letting him know that he's only got 1 charge of radar left, and they've both agreed that they're going to join together at and defend the cap circle at Bravo. They don't have a lot of available information between the 2 of them, except that they know that somebody on the enemy team is in the cap circle at Bravo, and they've got a basic idea of in which direction the enemy aircraft carrier is, because here come the Malta's aircraft. It's probably the Minotaur in the cap at Bravo. I'm pretty sure that the Malta isn't going to be in there. Yep, it's the Minotaur. And I don't think the Seal could have gotten there fast enough. Either way, he's been spotted now. I don't think we know whether or not he's a radar or a smoke Minotaur. He's always been at the other end of the map. He's definitely a torpedo Minotaur. So hydro is running. But from here on in, we're going to switch to Slack's perspective, because he's the one taking the majority, well, in fact, all of the Minotaur's fire, which would be fairly scary in any light cruiser, but he doesn't just have the Minotaur to worry about. See the gap in the 2 islands up ahead, slightly to the left? Yeah, there's the sonar ping from the enemy submarine. Not a lot he can do about that, other than send depth charges off and cross his fingers. He's clearly... well, he doesn't have to worry about getting set on fire by the Minotaur, because the Minotaur doesn't have high explosives. So he uses the damage control to mitigate the torpedo homing, and then angles hopefully not too much to avoid the torpedoes. Doesn't angle too much, so he is able to take most, but not all, of these Minotaur salvos on his belt. Hako now coming to his assistance, having cleared the island and adding his own weight of fire. The Minotaur is not going to survive this, it's just a question of who he can take with him. He's almost certainly launched torpedoes, but I don't think it's his torpedoes that are going to be the problem. Oh, this is going to be awfully close. They've got him, but there's a flesh wound award for the Minotaur. Slack is down. Hako is now on his own against an aircraft carrier and a submarine. The submarine has better stealth than he does, and the aircraft carrier has the best spotting in the game. Shit. But then for some reason, and I don't play submarines, so I don't know, maybe it's even a good reason, the submarine decides to surface to take a quick look within spotting range. And there's the Kraken unleashed, which means that Hako is now alone against the Malta. And it is here where Hako displays the reason why he is probably in the top 5% of World of Warships players. And now I run! He's not trying to win any harder than he needs to. He doesn't need to find and sink the Malta. In fact, heading towards the Malta when you're 300 points ahead and less than a minute away from winning with 2 cap circles is the exact worst possible thing that he can do. He doesn't need to be making it easier for the Malta to find him. Instead, he's running away. In fact, the only issue is that his smoke is still going, which basically is pointing a big finger in the direction that the Malta needs to follow in order to find him. However, the Malta sees the smoke and comes to the wrong conclusion, and he tries to torpedo the smoke screen. Spots Hako at the very last second, but too late to abort the torpedo drop. Tries to correct, you can see him coming in, but he's coming in from the rear, and it's the worst possible angle to try to drop torpedoes on a small, narrow, fast-moving target like a destroyer, so he's completely buggered that up. Goes around again for another go, but Hako is on 995 points with 2 cap circles, 998. There's the victory. 1,000 points and a victory achieved by the noble and often underappreciated tactic of simply running the hell away at the right time. So that's, one hell of a victory and a shameless abuse and exploit of the premium and extremely expensive and rare communication and teamwork consumables by Hako and Slack there in the Vampire and Sphere respectively. Slack may not have survived, but with 2,745 base experience, he was pretty comfortably clear at the top of the team on experience earned, despite the Kraken unleashing the 5 kills and no less impressive performance here by Hako in the Vampire 2. It is so rare to see this kind of organic and completely natural teamwork between a pair of guys in a random team who have never met each other before. Sincerely hope you two added each other to your friends list, because you've got a long and glorious future working together if this battle was any kind of indication. And I hope you all agree and it's given you something to talk about in the comments, because that is it for today. Thank you to both of them for an exemplary display. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope you all did too. And as always, take care and I'll catch you next time.